I was one of the last men to see him enter. There were 6 of us at the base of the ascending passage that evening. Officers, aides, a local guide who had navigated the interior passages dozens of times. Napoleon stood at the entrance for a long moment, candle in hand, looking up into the darkness that the passage disappeared into above us. He said nothing. He handed his coat to the nearest officer, took the candle, and began to climb. We waited at the base. The king's chamber is a rectangular room about 10 meters long, built with smooth granite slabs, walls, floor, ceiling, without decoration of any kind. It contains a single object, an empty granite sarcophagus, carved in one piece, deposited there during construction because it is wider than the passageways. There is no way to remove it. There is no way to bring it in. It has been there since the pyramid was sealed. Napoleon knew this. He had read every survey, every description, every account our scholars had assembled. He knew exactly what the room looked like. He had asked for no lampstand, no chair, no provisions of any kind. Only the candle. Bonaparte wanted to be left alone in the king's chamber, as Alexander the Great before him. Obsessed throughout his career with key historical figures, Napoleon tried to emulate those who had also spent a night in the chamber alone, while searching for greater purpose. We did not know how long he intended to stay. We found out at dawn. 7 hours after he entered the passage, we heard footsteps descending. Slow, measured, not the pace of a man hurrying toward company. The pace of a man walking very carefully, as if still thinking about something that demanded complete attention. He emerged into the morning light. Napoleon emerged pale and shaken. He refused to discuss any details about what he experienced. I have served this man in 4 campaigns. I have watched him walk through artillery smoke without flinching. I have seen him stand at the front of charges while everything around him collapsed. I had never, before that morning, seen his face look the way it looked when he came out of that passage. Not afraid. Something past fear. Something that fear transforms into when it has been processed by a mind like his. A kind of settled, permanent alteration. He did not speak on the ride back. He did not speak at dinner. He returned to his work with the methodical focus that defined him, and the night in the pyramid was not mentioned again. Not by him. Not by us. An unspoken agreement settled over those who had been present. Whatever had happened in the king's chamber was not a subject that invited questions. 23 years later, Napoleon Bonaparte lay dying on the island of St. Helena. A man who had been close to him for decades sat beside the bed. He had waited 23 years to ask the question that everyone who had stood at that pyramid in trance wanted answered. He asked it now. Napoleon was about to tell him and stopped. Then he shook his head and said, "No, what's the use? You'd never believe me." He died carrying it. Whatever the king's chamber showed Napoleon Bonaparte on the night of August 1798, the most fearless military mind of his generation decided, in his final moments, that the world was not ready to hear it, and did not tell. Story 2. Paul Brunton, King's Chamber, 1936. It had been a particularly daunting task to secure permission from the government of Egypt to spend a night alone inside the Great Pyramid. I want to be precise about what I am and what I am not. I am not a superstitious man. I am not a man who mistakes imagination for experience. I have spent years studying disciplines of the mind that most academics refuse to engage with seriously, and in all of that time I have applied the same rigorous standard. What can be verified? What can be observed? What can be documented? What happened inside the king's chamber of the Great Pyramid on the night I spent there alone? I documented every detail. I published every detail. I have never retracted a word of it. The guards locked the entrance behind me at dusk. The ascending passages are narrow, low, steep. By the time I reached the king's chamber, the darkness was total. Not the darkness of a room with closed curtains, but the darkness of a place that has never been disturbed by light. I lit my candles. I sat. I opened my notebook. For the first hours, nothing happened. I wrote observations. I listened to my own breathing, which the granite walls returned to me from multiple directions simultaneously. I noted the temperature. I noted the silence, which had a particular quality. Dense, pressurized, the silence of a space that has been sealed for a very long time. Then, a strange feeling that I was not alone began to creep insidiously over me. Shadows began to flit to and fro in the shadowless room. Gradually, these took more definite shape, and malevolent countenances appeared suddenly quite close. I am a disciplined man. I did not immediately accept what I was perceiving. I ran through every rational explanation: sleep deprivation, oxygen variation, the particular acoustic properties of the chamber acting on a stressed mind. I considered each one seriously. None of them accounted for what I was seeing. The presences that filled that room were not vague. They were not atmospheric. They were specific, mobile, and aware of me in a way that no projection of my own mind could account for, because they were not doing what I would have projected. They were indifferent. They moved through the chamber with the purposefulness of things that had been there long before I arrived, and would be there long after I left. And then my body stopped responding to me. It was as though he had unexpectedly given me a dose of some peculiar, slow-working anesthetic, for all my muscles became taut, after which a paralyzing lethargy began to creep over my limbs. I lay inside the granite sarcophagus. I do not know how I came to be there. I was sitting, and then I was lying flat inside it, and the ceiling of the king's chamber was above me, and I could not move, and the candles were burning down without my being able to reach for new ones, and everything that happened next I have written in detail in my published account, because I believe it is important that it be recorded. 2 figures in white robes, ancient, carrying an authority that had nothing to do with anything I had encountered in the living world. One of them spoke. He told me to find the passage within my own mind. He told me that the mystery of the pyramid is the mystery of the self. He told me that all the hidden chambers, all the sealed rooms, all the secrets that scholars had spent centuries trying to locate, were already inside me. And then I was back, sitting on the granite floor. Candles burned lower than they should have been. Notebook still in my hand. I walked out at sunrise and stood in the Egyptian morning and wrote for 3 hours without stopping. Never again would I repeat such an experiment. Never again would I take up a nocturnal abode within the Great Pyramid. I published everything. I named it. I described it precisely. I have never retracted a word. The king's chamber is not an empty room. I have been inside it. I have proof that I have been inside it. The book exists, the account exists, the permission documents exist. What else exists in that room that I cannot prove to anyone who has not been there alone? But I know what I experienced, and I know why I have never gone back. Story 3. The Bent Pyramid, the legend that locals won't let die. The Bent Pyramid rises from the desert at a 54-degree inclination, but the top section is built at the shallower angle of 43 degrees, lending the pyramid a visibly bent appearance. It has 2 entrances connected with 2 separate chamber systems. Nobody has a clean explanation for why the angle changed. Archaeologists say engineers were forced to reduce the angle when structural faults appeared midway through construction. The families who have lived in Dahshur for generations have a different account. I have worked at this site for 11 years. My name is not important. What I am going to tell you is not my story. It is a story that was told to me when I arrived. The way a new employee is shown where the fuse box is and told which lights flicker. Not because it is dramatic, because it is useful to know. The legend is this. During the construction of the Bent Pyramid, one of the workers, a man whose name does not survive in any record, was sealed inside the structure. Not by accident, by order. The accounts do not agree on why. Some say he had seen something during construction that the architects did not want spoken about. Some say it was punishment. Some say it was sacrifice, that the pyramid required something living to complete it. What the accounts agree on is this. The angle of the pyramid changed the day after he was sealed inside. The Bent Pyramid features the famous legend of a desperate architect or trapped worker sealed inside the walls. Locals living near the pyramid whisper about hearing persistent tapping sounds echoing from deep within the stone at night, as if someone is still trying to break out and escape. I heard the tapping on my 43rd night on patrol. I want to be clear about what it was not. It was not random. It was not the irregular percussion of stones settling or contracting in the cold. I know those sounds. They are chaotic, unpredictable. They do not repeat. What I heard was patterned. 3 taps, a pause. 3 taps, a pause. Exactly that. No variation. No interruption. As regular as a clock. I called the duty station. The guard on desk that night had been at Dahshur for 19 years. When I told him what I was hearing and how many taps, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he told me to come back inside. When I got there, he told me he had heard it 4 times in 19 years. Always the same. Always at night. Always from the eastern face. Has anyone investigated? I asked. He nodded. Ground-penetrating radar. Acoustic surveys. Structural engineers. Every time, clean stone. No hollow space. No mechanical explanation. Then what is it? He picked up his tea. The legend says 3 was the signal the worker used with his foreman. 3 taps to say, "I am still here." I thought about this. "That's a legend," I said. "Yes," he said. "Stone can't carry sound for 4,000 years." "No," he said. "It can't." We sat in silence. I went back out at 4 a.m. I passed the eastern face. The tapping was still going. I did not stop. I have not stopped since. Some things are better left where you find them. The families in Dahshur have known this for generations. The guards who work the night rotation learn it eventually. The pyramid has been making that sound for as long as anyone here can remember. 3 taps. A pause. 3 taps. "I am still here."